Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's largest platform for entrepreneurs. Anything and everything that matters to you, we cover it right here on the show. We're continuing our focus on businesses that are being highly innovative around the pandemic. And today, we are focusing two entrepreneurs on the LOT hot seat. First up is Stanplus. We're also going to be in conversation with Samarth. We're being joined live on the show by Prabhdeep Singh, founder CEO of Stanplus. Prabhdeep, good having you here. And I do know that the area that you've chosen to innovate in and focus on, that is something that is highly crucial and critical as we speak, and that is ambulances. So, my first question really is to talk about Stanplus as the business. What would you like to tell our viewers?
It's a pleasure to be here. Stanplus was born while I was doing my MBA in INSEAD in France. And the big problem that we are trying to solve is that we as Indians don't get help on time. We believe that it's unfair that an ambulance in India takes 45 minutes to reach, that a hospital has to rely on its own small ambulance system to answer all the thousands and thousands of calls that are coming in. And we always believe that there could be a far more efficient way for large companies, large hospitals, and patients to get access to help, especially in emergencies. So we operate in an environment that we've always called as reactive healthcare. The world has spoken a lot about preventive healthcare, and a lot of companies have done well there. But think to yourself, how many companies in the country actually talk about reactive healthcare at large? So reactive healthcare is when the healthcare system at large has to react to an incident. And that's the industry, that's the category of healthcare that we operate in.
I understand that, the markets that you largely look at, Hyderabad, you're now looking at Bangalore. Why are these markets for you crucial? Is perhaps the infrastructure that is available in these markets most broken compared to maybe other metro markets? What insights could you give us about these markets?
We believe that the tier one cities are still better than tier two and tier three, and the rural is absolutely, there's a very, very massive need in the rural parts of the country. However, we chose Hyderabad because Hyderabad has actually been the place where the 108 system through, erstwhile Satyam and now GVK EMRI, this is where it was born. Apollo Hospitals was started here. So there's a lot of healthcare ecosystem that exists for a company like us to come, land on soft ground and take off. And that's exactly what happened. We were validated in our choice of Hyderabad as the first city to go with. It's easier to respond to emergencies here. It's the roads are not very cramped. So for a system that still had to go through a stress test period, Hyderabad was the perfect landing ground. But now we chose Bangalore because of, again, very similar dynamics. But Bangalore has a unique problem that the healthcare system is great. We have some amazing hospitals, but the ambulance system is really, really bad. So it was, when we identified Hyderabad as a market, it was more of the need gap and the size of the market rather than just for our comfort. We carefully chose Bangalore. And the next market that we will go after are Chennai and Mumbai. Again, huge problems to solve. And then we will start making our inroads into NCR, Kolkata, and also the tier two markets of Indore, Pune, Lucknow, Kanpur, Corridor, etc.
I understand that you've tied up with a lot of private players, for this model and to ensure really the success of the business that you have. So can you break down, the business, the revenue? How does it really work? What do you want to tell us?
Sure. So we have a stepped revenue model. At the base, we run our own ambulance system called Red Ambulances. So 70% of the trips today are done or are on our internal ambulance company, which we run. It's called Red Ambulances, and it's the fastest system in the country. We respond in under 4 minutes. We are able to dispatch an ambulance in under 20 minutes. We are on patients' doorsteps. Red Ambulance actually is also running the ambulance system for multiple large hospitals in Hyderabad and Bangalore. So many hospitals have realized that uh, it doesn't make sense for them to run an ambulance system internally anymore. So they've decoupled it. So large hospitals have outsourced practically their emergency call center, their ambulance system, their drivers and their paramedics to Red Ambulances, and we are actually bringing all of them onto a network. So that's the base model. 30% of our trips are given to existing operators. We standardize them. We do a deep quality check before bringing them onto our system, and we make sure that they perform the duties as per our protocols. So 70% of trips on Red Ambulances, 30% on additional existing operators. And then we make our revenues on hospitals. Hospitals pay us to manage their ambulance system because they see a 2x to 3x increase in their ambulance linked revenues and a 75 to 80% decrease in their ambulance linked costs. So it's both revenue accretive on one side and cost appreciative on the other end. So it's a great balance. At the top, we have multinational companies, some of the largest companies in the country. They pay us monies to run emergency response for them at scale. So imagine a large company like TCS that has its employees now based out across all PIN codes in the country. How do you provide medical response where previously you could manage it on premise, but how do you manage medical response in a distributed manner? So that's where companies like us come in. So TCS has a dedicated 1800 number for them. We run their medical response desk. We answer it as Red 911 for TCS, and we are able to provide help in every pin code through our partners. In the cities we are directly present in, like Hyderabad and Bangalore, through our ambulance system and through the hospital partnerships that we have. So it's a very integrated system. We are the fastest to respond, and we have about 25 to 30 enterprise contracts going live every month. So that's the scale at which we are now helping. COVID has, of course, accelerated. No HR in the world wants to answer calls at 2 a.m. of employees sobbing for their family and asking for help. So I think more and more human resource professionals, benefits professionals, and CEOs are now talking to Stanplus to enable them to create a virtual war room or create a COVID emergency helpline or a general medical response, reactive healthcare setup internally.
The markets that we've been speaking of, at least the ones that we've named, Hyderabad, Bangalore, etc., we're talking about urban markets. Now, there is a huge market, there's a huge need for a business model like yourself in rural India. Have you explored those markets? What have what comments can you offer about these markets? What's the size perhaps of the market? And would you enter these markets? And what are the challenges there?
Very interesting. The ambulance market works in a very strange way is in the following manner. So whenever I speak to someone and ask them that what is an ambulance market, and perhaps our viewers here can also, when they hear of an ambulance, the first thing that comes on the mind is an ambulance rushing by with a siren, so full emergency. But a large part of the Indian ambulance market is what we call long distance non-emergency transport. So imagine that someone is in a primary healthcare center in a village, in a mandal, and they've been advised to go to a higher center. Chances are that the higher center is in a large metro, which is the closest, or a tier two. So for rural Maharashtra, it could be Nashik or Pune, where the tertiary care hospitals exist. So a large part of country actually travels from the rural markets into the tier two to tier one cities. So this is a very exciting market because it's long distance logistics. So as an ambulance operator, your model has to be flexible enough to do last mile, which is someone calling in from their home needing to go to the nearest hospital, to also doing cases like we are today doing a case from Raipur to Hyderabad, Coimbatore into Chennai, etc. So those are transport opportunities that exist, especially in rural, where there is already deficiency of ambulances and deficiency of health, tertiary healthcare providers. A lot of market that we see is geared towards the metros.
In terms purely of business growth, etc., what did the pandemic mean for an entrepreneur like yourself, Prabhdeep? What can you tell us?
Wow. So a pandemic means not having enough oxygen, not having enough people to service a demand that has gone 10x. So, while the supply has decreased, the demand has increased. So we've figured out ways of how to deploy our assets and our people in the most efficient way. So what a patient wants is not what a patient sometimes needs. So our system is geared towards understanding the difference between a want and a need. And once that clinical need is established, to best use an ambulance system. So while we've answered 10x more calls and we've delivered 4x to 5x more trips, but we believe that we could have done better if there was oxygen that was given to the ambulance operators as well, or if there was some support given on ambulance purchase. In the current times, we are paying 28% GST on each ambulance that we purchase, but we are unable to charge those GSTs to patients, which is absolutely fair. But I believe the government should support should keep in mind the ambulance operators when oxygen is rationed, and at the same time provide GST subsidies or discounts to players that are contributing to the pandemic as well. At scale, pandemic or non-pandemic, the system needs to be overhauled, and pandemic has just brought to light the deficiencies. There should be absolutely no reason why we need to have buses and auto rickshaws being converted into ambulances. They are just not appropriate vehicles for clinical use case. They're not sanitized. They don't have the right power sockets for the equipments that we carry. But I think that's the need of the hour. So kudos to everyone who stepped in to transport patients. But I believe that this has laid bare the truth that India and Indian large private companies like us need to invest heavily in building that infrastructure. And at Stanplus, we are committed to make sure that we don't go through this ever again.
Prabhdeep, thank you so much for the time, and thank you for the service that you're doing, very invaluable for the times that we are in. Let's slip into a short break. On the other side, I'm in conversation with Samarth. Coming up, Asheesh Gupta, founder and chief care officer. Welcome back. With us here to lead us of tomorrow. Our second entrepreneur in the hot seat today is Asheesh Gupta of Samarth. Asheesh, just give us the sense of where the idea for Samarth came about. What is the business rule? If you could describe it in a few sentences for our viewers.
So, the idea of Samarth is, at least the way all of us who are involved in it feel, is quite simple. We basically are on a mission, as we say, to bring peace of mind and happiness to elderly and their children in India. Fundamentally, we want to transform the way people age in India. I think that's really the mission we set ourselves. And we do a bunch of activities, or let's say there are several parts to our work, each of which in a way works towards this goal. Samarth, as you know, Hindi means to be self-sufficient, to be self-reliant, and that's the spirit of our. I hesitate to call it a business alone. It's like most social ventures, it's also something which is driven a lot with our passion. But really, there are three pillars of what we do. One, we offer care to elderly who are living alone, who don't have the support of children and others around them adequately. So that's one part of our program. The other is our community program, where we work with elderly at large, and we today have the largest community of elderly in the country. There's a little community card which our members carry, and it provides them a bunch of benefits in addition to providing information, advice, and opportunities for them to stay engaged. And I can talk more about that. But as you age, that is a very important aspect of staying well and staying staying healthy both in the mind and in the body.
So businesses like yours, players like yours, I understand have seen a huge surge in demand when it comes to the pandemic. Just give us a sense of that. Can you talk to us about that?
Elderly have been one of the most impacted since the beginning. If you look at phase one, really there was a lot of impact around elderly for two reasons. One was just the fact that they were more susceptible, they were more vulnerable. But the second was the lack of mobility, and the lack of access affected them the most. Imagine being cooped up in a room and also cooped up with fear that if you were to get infected, then what would happen? So that was a big thing for most elderly in India. Equally concerned were people, people like us who had elderly parents who were not with them, about taking care of the elderly, because suddenly the lockdown, suddenly the lack of mobility meant that you could not rush to help whenever help was needed. And therefore, the need for caring at home, the need for providing a range of services at home suddenly became that much more. I think the part which is less appreciated is also the mental side of it and the emotional side of it, which also became extremely important, due to isolation, due to this feeling of helplessness. And so, we've seen a big surge, not just in terms of, demand for what we were offering, but about new things which we had to quickly, add to our portfolio in terms of support, the mental and support being one of them.
What are the different services that you offer? Any expansions, anything that you can share with us?
I think, a lot of this is driven by, and, having worked in research and consulting for a long time, and one of my other co-founders is an economist from Cambridge, and we said, look, we have to understand that we don't know what we don't know. And part of our development, our growth has actually come from getting a better understanding of what, elderly want, what elderly need. One of the big things, so the three things that I talked to you about was about care, community, and commerce. What we found was that healthcare particularly was a big area of concern for elderly. Everybody knows and feels that once they age, they will need greater healthcare, and healthcare is expensive. And, insurance, unfortunately, for elderly in India is not a guaranteed thing. And therefore, largely, you don't have good insurance products. So one of our focuses, which came out of our work and research with the community, was to launch a healthcare product, specially tailored for elderly, where we try and bring the benefits of insurance, some of the key benefits of insurance to elderly who are largely going to be self-insured. In India, most elderly pay for themselves. Unless you're a government servant and have retired from there, you pay for your own treatment. Now, unfortunately, not only are you paying in cash, you're also paying usually more than what an insured person gets, and so it's a double whammy for the elderly. And so, what we have launched is a healthcare plan, which covers all healthcare expenses of the elderly, not just hospitalization, but OPDs, diagnostics, radiology tests, pathology tests, physiotherapy, dental, eye care, home health, whatever you can think of. We do this through about 9,500 partner hospitals, clinics, and providers across the country. And we are able to provide, insurance-like negotiated prices, rates, discounts to our members in the plan. And very importantly, also able to provide them, some of the services that a third-party administrator provides, like the ability to check their bills, whether, they are being overcharged, the ability to get second opinions, the ability to look at, multiple providers and be able to, find one which meets their need better. So that's a big part, going forward of our plan and growth as far as serving the, elderly on the commercial side is concerned.
You are largely self-funded. Why have you decided to take that route, and what have been the benefits for someone in the business that you are in of that? And any fundraising plans, anything you can talk to us about?
I have fortunately or unfortunately have had both experiences of, having built a company which was funded, and a company, this one, which is self-funded. I think it's a matter of stage. And for any entrepreneur, I think it's important to understand, at least, my 2 cents is to understand, what is it, at what stage you are, and how deep do you want to dig to create, the building that you want. For us, this was, we started in this space quite early. And in some ways, we, many of the things that we are doing in the elder care space are pioneering. So we had to figure out a lot of things ourselves. There were no models, so to speak, in India that we could, emulate and follow. And many of the models which have existed in the West have not, will not translate exactly, because we have a different social system. We have a different way people think. Eventually things do converge, but right now they are quite different. I mean, people talk about technology, for example. One big learning, if you have to serve people in elder care, is that you cannot and you should not, again, my 2 cents, lead with technology. So we took a very conscious decision to lead with tech and lead with touch and follow with tech, right? And that, I think, has worked well for us, because elder care is really about building trust, right? Having worked with investors, VCs, and getting external funding, I understand that there is a certain requirements and rhythm that most investors need to have and go for. I mean, the question there is always, when the next city, when is the next service, when is the next, and I think we wanted to give ourselves time to build the right, architecture to ensure that we have the right ingredients and the right culture to that encourages trust.
Are you seeing enough young entrepreneurs entering this space, Asheesh? And if not, what are the challenges that's holding them back?
I think there is tremendous potential. I think there's tremendous opportunity of serving this demographic, serving what is called, the longevity economy. But I think people also need to understand that, and probably that is why we are seeing entrepreneurial activity. But I think I would personally like to see a lot more of that, because this market needs more work. This market needs more participation and more development. And entrepreneurs who have a slightly longer term, focus and look at things as they evolve, can find this to be very exciting. It is a tough market. It's a segment which is not, I mean, all of us have grandparents, and you can very quickly understand that this is not a segment which is easy to serve, right? Having said that, are there ways, are there models? Yes, you have to be driven about it. You have to be passionate about it, like with most other areas. But because, a lot of this doesn't have precedence, one needs to have the depth and the patience to persist and to persevere.
Okay, Asheesh, last question in terms of what FY22 is looking like.
So look, I think, right now it's nose to the grind and just go forward. I think our care programs are scaling well. You might know that we are doing that in about 40 odd cities in India. And, at one level, it makes me proud. On the other level, all of us are continuously thinking, why only 40? What if somebody has a parent in the, 100th city and the 110th city, then why are we not there? So I think, making sure that we are able to satisfy this need and support elderly across the country with care is going to be a focus in this year.
Asheesh Gupta, thanks so much for your time. Completely out of time on this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow, but do stay tuned. We're going to continue focusing on highly innovative entrepreneurs all of this month. If you have any feedback for us, whom should we be focusing on? If you are one such innovative business, do get in touch. Our contact details on your screens as we speak. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.